Hi, this is Catholic Ben. Do you also find sometimes that your days, weeks, months are flying by like crazy? Well, me too. And what I love about my Catholic faith is that it always has some tips, some practical resource that will help me out, pin this day down, pin this tempo, this crazy pace a little bit down. And one of those practical resources that I've found during the Exodus 90, I've heard of it before, but I never really implemented it into my life, was the daily or evening examen. It's a practice that was founded hundreds of years ago by St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, and they're the real masters of this practice. They do examine like, pros. I'm just starting out, but I love it. I like it. Exactly for the reasons that I'd mentioned before. What is it all about? It's something that you do right before you go to bed. Oftentimes I do it in bed, and consequently I don't do the whole thing and I fall asleep during the exercise itself, which is not that bad at all, really. I mean, come on, what better way to fall asleep than during prayer, during time of communion with God. So I don't, give myself a hard time about it. But how does it look like? It goes like this. When you enter into the examen, you mindfully remember that God is with you right now, this very moment, the God of the universe, and He's looking at you with love, with sympathy. That's that's a whole, for me, it's an emotional thing. The Lord of the universe is looking at me with sympathy and love. That's something I could use more often. And that's why I really love just going into this thing. And oftentimes I, emotionally feel God's presence, which is very, very powerful in itself. Then you go through the day slowly, through your memories of the day. This is what really pins down the whole day in my memory. And you acknowledge all of the good stuff that has happened, all of the blessings that you've received, and you are grateful for those. This act of gratitude is also something that helps you, really get your moods up all the way. It's very, very efficient in making you just simply a happier person. But then you also go through the negative stuff that you've done, through the times you've missed the mark, through the bad thoughts that you've had about people, through the acts of, not being kind, not being nice, of the, just points in this day where you've missed the mark. Everybody does it. The Bible says that even the holy man, the just person sins 7 times a day. I sin way more often than 7 times a day. Probably you too, So you just goes through those and you give those to God and ask Him for His forgiveness. And then also in the same moment you just thank Him for the forgiveness because He's giving it to you as well. Then you just, wind down, you just relax in His presence a bit more and, ask Him for the following day. Try to think of some action points where you will change some of your attitudes or actions from this day before, and that's it. And then you're ready to hit the sack, ready to fall asleep. That's something that can really be a good resource for everyone, so I highly recommend it. And if you want to explore the examen further, there's tons of other resources online. You just go and look them up, okay? I'm glad you're following along with me as well. We're becoming intentional disciples of Jesus Christ. We want to be very, very, what did we say? We want to be authentic about our faith, not pretending to be super holy, super spiritual, but, just daily walking with God, looking for ways how to become closer to God and how to become better people, really, in Him, through His power, through His strength, not through only our efforts, even though our efforts have to be a part of this story as well. Okay, this is for another video. We'll see you next time. I'm glad you're following along. I'm Catholic Ben. Bye-bye. God bless. Ciao.